John, have I told you I'm addicted to Carwell's auctions?
You might have mentioned it, yeah.
Well, they're online 6 days a week. They're getting 20,000 fresh vehicles in every month. It's actually one of my best sources of quality stock. Listings have got plenty of photos, service history, and background checks for peace of mind. And you can pay sellers in a click with Carwell Wallet. They even transport your car with built-in protection of up to £25,000.
Well, that's more than you will ever need.
Exactly, John. So dealers, if you're not on CarWow, you really should get in on the auction. See what I've done, John?
Oh, God.
Anyway, to find out more, sign up for free at carwow.co.uk/partners/auctions.
Welcome back to the Car Dealer Podcast, where we pick our favourite stories of the week and ask an industry guest to choose which were the best. I'm John Ray, and joining me, as usual, it's James Baggett. James.
Hello, John Ray. Do we have to talk like that now?
Excuse me?
Hello, John.
Are you saying that after 200 and something episodes, I've become formulaic? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I mean, who would? I mean, some people will allege you read from a script, but I just know that's not the truth.
I don't know what you... Oh, shit, I've minimised it.
What, the script?
It's fine. Everything's fine. So, James, how are you?
I'm okay, John. I think this week has given me a few more grey hairs, if I'm honest. It has been...
Have you got any more space for them?
I was going to say, you've maxed out. There's no more capacity.
We should probably introduce our rude guest, shouldn't we, right now?
Yeah, since he's introduced himself. Well, our guest this week joins us from something called the Clever Car Collection.
Great business.
Which I'm told is a used car dealership in Gosport, specialising in Kia Picantos, actually. So please welcome Joe Wallington. Joe,
Thanks.
Nice to have you.
I know. How many podcasts have you done? 200 and
something.
And this is the first time that you've invited me on it to the Car Dealer Podcast.
Yeah, well, welcome.
I know.
It's a bit rude of us, really, isn't it?
Yeah. You wonder.
I mean, it's nothing to do with the fact that we didn't have a guest this week.
Yeah, no, you didn't actually text me and say, actually, Friday's guest is cancelled, so...
Can you come on?
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, I haven't seen you for at least half an hour, so how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I've literally only just finished a coffee that you kindly bought me this morning.
Well, I should say James and I have agreed that I get to ask the questions this time.
Okay.
Yeah,
you know, as a form of Chinese wall.
I'm going to hide James's face so that it doesn't kind of influence my answers in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, try and keep a straight face, James. So, I mean, for my first question, how much of the work in the dealership, Joe, would you say James actually does? 10, 15%?
Yeah, at least. Yeah, sometimes I think it can be as high as 10%. James loves to start things. One great example of this, John, is obviously the Japanese cars, which I will say you are slightly liable for as well. What basically has happened there is you two went on holiday, and now I've got 6 problems sat behind me and no way of knowing how to deal with them. I've had to type of checkbooks, send paper forms to varying government agencies, and spend many hours on hold to varying government officials trying to tell me what to do with them, and I still don't know.
But, Joe, they are very clean.
Oh, yeah, no, they are lovely and clean, John. And what I really like about them is we have to move them in and out multiple times a day because they're not registered, so they can't be in the car park. So, yeah, great buys.
Yeah, that sort of leads me on to my second question, which is, how has that all gone?
Yeah,
from your perspective? Nice and smooth?
You might as well ask if we've bought any more, because the answer to that is no, which might tell you somewhat what the process has been like. Joking aside, I've enjoyed it. It's interesting to learn how you do these things, but my word, I did not think that the stress, the paperwork, or just the list of people you have to pay, things you have to do, forms you have to fill in was anywhere near what it has been. And we're probably only 2/3 of the way through.
So, I mean, we could talk about this for hours, but you've got 2 different complications going on, haven't you? There was the complication of they arrived in 2 different ways. So you had some that were driven on a boat and then driven off by what's the word?
A stevedore. I learned that word as part of the process. It was driven off of a ro-ro by a stevedore, I believe is the official terminology there.
So Stephen Dorr drove some of those off, and then the other ones, you had in a container, and then you had to pay someone to take them out of a container.
Yeah, the other ones we had in a container for complicated reasons. They went on a boat that no one knew about. The container was lifted off of the boat onto, I think, the dockside at Southampton for some weeks. And then eventually somebody phoned me and said, I think you own what's in this container. Could you deal with it? And yes, then we paid a company quite a lot of money, it turns out, to move this container, deal with it, unload them, damage some of them somewhere along the line. Something went wrong, I think, somewhere. That's all included in the price. And here they are now with us.
Have a guess, John. Have a guess how much it cost us to unpack each of those cars from the container. There's 4 cars in there. Have a guess how much it was per car.
Well, I've seen your spreadsheet, so it's not really much of a guess. But I think at the time that we collected them, it was something like for 350 quid per car, wasn't it?
Per car. And all they did is open the door to a container and got the cars out.
I would like to say here, just to go back to your first question, John, is I got the quote for that, put it on the spreadsheet, paid that invoice probably 6 weeks ago. And James has only just noticed some of these costs and is now outraged that we paid that amount of money. It was like, I think it was in last year's tax year. Like, I think done deal. And last night he texted me and went, was it really that much money to unload a container? I said, well, you don't know how to do it and I don't know how to do it. So we have had to pay someone to do that.
There was a reason for that though, wasn't there? Because we did have a lead on a chimney this week and someone might actually want to put a deposit down. So that was the reason we looked at it, because we were thinking...
I don't know, I've looked at it all along. It's the reason I've kept...
This is why I'm here to mediate between the two of you, because I've been in that dealership. No, squabbles all day long. So I'm going to move this away now from import cars. Talk about you, Joseph. So, I mean, the question I've written down here is, how did you get into the motor trade? But I mean, I sort of know that the answer to that, because James went, help, on the phone one day.
That was basically it. At the point that he decided to have another child and was still cleaning 10-year-old Vauxhall Corsas on his driveway, I think he soon realised that he may have made a poor decision and needed some assistance. So,
but, I mean, tell everyone a bit more about your background, because you're not a car person so much as a boat person.
Exactly.
Am I right?
Yeah, I am boats all day long. Sail them, maintain them, look after them, know everything there is about them. Nothing about cars until I started here. I drive a very questionable 63 plate, just about starts red Audi A3. I say red in areas. Yeah, cars were not my thing at all.
So this was not anything you'd ever thought of doing before? You'd never thought, maybe I could be a car dealer?
Not even slightly. But
whereas for James, of course, he hasn't shut up about it for about 25 years. He's just, I want to open a car dealership. When am I going to do that? Oh no, I need to publish a magazine. Anyway, so how are you finding it then, being that this is quite a new area for you?
I mean, it is incredibly interesting, just from learning the process and even thinking back. I was doing the paperwork for one we sold this morning and how it's evolved from, I remember the first one being sat next to James in his quite tiny office. He had a cardboard box on the floor with some ring binders in it and some stickers. And he was trying to teach me how the kind of handover paperwork was compiled. About 4 different rooms in his house played part of it. We met the customers in his dining room. It worked, but it's crazy, really, when you think back to then being sat in, only a small unit up the road from there, but just the way that even the paperwork has evolved and how we've evolved, really, from October last year we came here.
Yeah, I remember at one point the stairs in James's house played quite an important role in separating the different documents out. It was one document per step.
That was all part of the process.
That is true. It's actually true.
I'm not sure what the fire marshal would have said about that, were that actually a working building. But anyway, so what's your favourite thing about the job then? Because for James, I'm guessing it's dealing with the customers. For you, Joe, it must be dealing with Nova certificates.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love just government forms that I learned the other day. On the government can't accept forms done on an Apple computer. Who knew?
Right.
So I had to print them, hand fill them in, and post them. I had to send James, because I was angry at this point, to the local post office to send them to the DVLA. Amazing. What do I like? I still love the buying. When a car turns up here that we've bought, that we've had collected or whatever, that is, turns out to be a really nice vehicle, that's still very exciting, because as we've always said, if we buy them right, really, we've half sold them.
I mean, you have taken on a new person now as well to spread the load, have you
Yeah.
not? Two of you.
What we've really done there, John, is taken on a new person and absolutely bombard him with everything that's in our brains. And hopefully he's going to keep working for us, because one of those where he's only been here for a few weeks and I don't know what we did before he was here. I genuinely don't know how we managed.
Well, what I like as well is you've taken on a new person to spread the load, and then what you appear to have done, I'm saying this looking from the outside, is you've then taken on twice as many cars.
Yeah.
So
We said when it was me and James, we would have. Well, in fact, when it was me and James, and we still had a bit of help from Jimmy, we said we'll try and keep 15 cars in stock. We've taken Luke on. We've blinked a couple of times, and I think we own something like 29 vehicles at the moment. So we've kind of doubled accidentally in 5 weeks.
all going very well.
Yeah.
I also wanted to touch on your skills in the dealerships that have come in. I mean, there's multiple, obviously. I mean, the first I could talk about was spreadsheets.
Yeah.
I think that was the first revolution that came to the Clever Car Collection, was it not?
I'm quite good at spreadsheets. I set up a spreadsheet.
You don't do maths and you don't actually believe in bookkeeping.
I sort of do. I believe in the fact that someone has to do bookkeeping. It's just
Your answer is
not my forte.
Dear, oh dear. I
yeah,
feared it would come to this, but that was part one. I think part two is the famous wooden wall, which James takes a lot of credit for.
Oh, the one James built. Yeah, I remember him building that well. Same as the new kitchen that James built that's here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you are a very useful component in this business, I feel.
I think so.
I mean, you guys must be outgrowing that facility that you have now, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. We've just had the renewal and we joke about the maths. I mean, I nearly signed a 2-year deal forgetting that we pay VAT on this unit yesterday. So it's not always, James, that is the maths problem. But somehow we still, I hope, make money. Someone will tell us that one day. Yeah, I don't know. I really like it here. I sort of hope we don't grow out of it. But already, just with these imports, is becoming frustrating because we have to now empty the dealership to bring something in, to photograph it, to advertise it, and then put them all back in again every night, which we actually used to do when we first moved in here. We were quite used to loading the dealership with 4 or 5 cars. But yeah, I mean, who knows what we're gonna do? Depends how many cars we keep buying.
It's quite the site works quite well for us because they do allow us to flex up and down on the parking, and I think partly they don't know how many cars we've actually got in the car park, and because they're not in at the weekend when ours the only cars in the car park got sort of spread out throughout Base Point. Can I ask a couple of questions, John? There's just a couple that I just had for just a couple I have to.
As long as they're not along the lines of Joe, I was looking for that document for the Kia Picanto.
Yeah, where is the stapler? No. What have you found the hardest about doing this business? I mean, what's the toughest bit?
I mean, it's just trying to keep. I think the same for you is trying to keep up with everything that's happening. And I think we've now got Luke full time, who's absolutely amazing. But it's a different stress, isn't it? Whereas before it was me and you doing all the collections. We knew what we bought. We had to, work our own logistics and go and get them. But now we're managing somebody and we're managing that workload and making sure that there's something for him to do and that collection's ready and that I'm available on the end of the phone or you are. So, yeah, I think just that sort of general growth of as we've grown, trying to keep everything in our brains. I mean, that whiteboard I glance over lovingly at is just chaos where we both come in and just bombard it with everything we can think of, stick it on there and hope. So, yeah, for me, it's definitely that side of just trying to keep enough capacity to know what's happening.
And we use a lot of suppliers in this business, everything from DMSs to advertising portals and stuff. What's your honest opinion on which ones do you think we could not do without?
I mean, Dealer Kit for me, I think there's so much. What I love about Dealer Kit so much is it's so intuitive. We now use, I counted up the other day, and I think from the point that we buy a vehicle to the point that somebody drives it away, we use something like 11 systems. I have to log into 11 different things in order to do that process. And out of all of those, Dealer Kit is definitely the most intuitive. It never annoys me, weirdly. I never go on it and think, that's annoying. Stupid things on the DVLA that you can't confirm an email address by copying and pasting it into the bottom box. It's really niggly bits, but yeah, for me, definitely. And they're so open to development. They're just been fantastic with the support they give us.
And we've tried to use AI throughout the business as much as possible, haven't we? And we've had some success and some not success. Was that the opposite? I don't know. What would you say, or is there anything you would think that we should be really trying when it comes to AI, or anything you'd like AI to do that we do that it just can't at the moment?
I struggle sometimes. Some of the stuff that we've used AI for has really blown me away. Some of the stuff that you've put through it when we've been up here and it's done for us has been incredible. You would photograph in those Japanese export and import bits and paperwork and asking, what, that was amazing. But yet it can't fill a form in. I had that Nova form, or I have the IVA forms. AI can be fed everything about the vehicle because we've got that. We've got all the paperwork here, but it just can't do that. It is impossible for it to do it. And that is the bit I struggle with. I think, how can it be so clever in some areas, but then in other things, it literally can't put our dealership name on a government form?
Yeah, I do find that frustrating. I would love AI to be able to talk to different systems and log in as yourself and be a sort of digital you. It'd be very helpful if it could do that. What about car buying? We use a number of different platforms for that. I mean, which one do you prefer? Which one do you like using?
I don't know. They both have their, again, little bits and pieces. Obviously, Carwow and Motorway are our main ones. Yeah, they both are really good. It's weird, the little things that frustrate you. Motorway annoys me because the way we do our paperwork means we use so much black ink printing out the purchase things. That frustrates me every day. These are the sorts of things I lay in bed thinking about. Carwow, really great because it brings in the cap prices when we're producing the paperwork. That's one less login. It sounds stupid, but when you got 4 cars that you're trying to sort collection paperwork for, it's amazing those bits and pieces. But I mean they're both really good and really useful, aren't they? But I think Carwow slightly wins out for me.
Can I just ask on car sourcing as well? James has certainly his opinions on what the best way to find used cars is. He's traditionally been a little bit. He's been a little bit more pro Carwow and Motorway type stuff, individual collections. He's not a big fan of the auctions, I would say, because it scares him. Do you share that feeling, or are you a bit more like me and you think actually there are some efficiencies to be gained from going to one place and buying 20 cars and coming home with them?
We've done the auction. We did the video on it. I really enjoyed it. I really think I'd like to find time for me and James to try it again. I really love the Carwow and Motorway way of buying and the process, but from an efficiency point of view, it is slow. It does bring its benefits, but, like this morning, Luke hasn't come into work yet. He's out buying a vehicle. That will probably take him the best part of half a day by the time he's done that. But we'll get a lovely car out of it. The scale bit concerns me. If we continue to scale, I think you start to struggle. We saturate our area. We're already scaling by using Motorway Move and Carwow Collect more and more, which has some hiccups sometimes. But I think we're going to struggle to keep scaling without going to the auction. And I think before we're sort of forced that way, it would be nice for me and James to find some time, get out on the road, and maybe try it again to see.
For both of you, this is a sort of talking more generally about the business, this is a sort of side hustle for both of you individually. Can you see a time when it is, and please don't say yes to this, James, because I won't have another job, but can you see this being your main income? Can you see you going, do you know what, I'm going to sack off the sailing a bit and the boats, and I am now a full-time car dealer. This is my thing.
It sort of has become that. Somehow we just wedge it into our days. The great thing is, John, we both volunteer here. So what we try and do is do our paid for employment and then wedge another sort of 6 to 8 hours of work. I was thinking the other day, it's almost become shift work here because I routinely now come up at about 5:30 in the morning and I do any admin and paperwork till about 8, 8:30. I think I'll do my actual day job that pays my mortgage. James will then come up here, somehow juggle his actual day job and selling cars with about 2 computers and 3 phones and maybe some staff from his main business over in the other building. And then he'll finish and I'll often come back up in the evening, last night, taking a car to the Isle of Wight, doing a late viewing, late collection, more admin. So yeah, somehow we've kind of turned car dealing into continental shift pattern.
Well, it sounds lovely.
Yeah.
It's quite
I mean,
stressful job.
again, it's the scale thing, isn't it? If we continue to scale, it's going to need more of our time. It's already taking more of our time, and we're wedging as much of that in as possible. That's probably got a ceiling somewhere. Maybe our partners would know better the answer to that
Yeah,
question.
we're not going to ask them. Joe, what do you find most frustrating about the job?
Don't say James.
You've answered that yourself. Most frustrating. It's always going to be the warranty issues, isn't it? It's going to be, I genuinely, hand on heart, we do as much as we possibly can with vehicles. I genuinely don't think we could do any more in our prep, in the way that we look after customers, in the way that we prepare the vehicles, check them, MOT them, separate mechanic. We really go above and beyond. So it is absolutely gutting when we get not just one issue, but if we have a problem vehicle that keeps coming back. Then,
We've got to tell the BMW story, Joe. You've got to tell the BMW story.
Yeah, I mean the BMW. So James purchased a BMW, absolutely lovely vehicle from a youngish guy, I think, who wanted specifically to sell it to us. Bought it in, did our usual, drove it around as we try and do with them all, no problems, serviced it, MOT'd it, PDI'd it, all is well. Gentleman from the Isle of Wight, 50th birthday this year, wanted to treat himself, so purchased this BMW. All good. I said I'll deliver that. Bob is away, so I delivered that last Saturday morning, dropped it to him, test drive, drove it over on the ferry, all good. Walking up the road from his house, he'd got back in it to try and move it. Engine warning light comes on. No worries. Back to his house I go. Middle of the Isle of Wight, Saturday, 12:30. I can obviously do nothing about that. No problem, sir. I'll get back in the vehicle. I'll go back. I'll book another car ferry. Bearing in mind, I think the ferry to the Isle of Wight with a car is somewhere between 120 and 150 pounds a time. Drove it back to the ferry port, brought it back, met James back here about 3:00 Saturday afternoon, took it to the garage, spent £500 getting a knock sensor. Never heard of those.
Yeah, knock sensor.
It's got a new one of those in it. I thought, right, above and beyond, this gentleman really wants this car. His birthday's coming up. He needs it for work. I'll deliver it again yesterday evening after work. So I book the 6:00 car ferry, finish work, get the car, drive it around to Portsmouth, another £150 on the car ferry. Over we go. Got to him 6:30, 7:00. Absolutely lovely. Drove beautifully. Really happy with it. I get the bus, a ferry, get home about 9:00 last night. Come in this morning, beautiful email from him. Thank you so much. Best customer service. You fixed the car. You spent all that money on it. I understand your business. You've got to make profit. I assume there's no profit left in the car, but I really appreciate it. I replied to the email. Brilliant. Lovely to see you. Thanks very much. 4 minutes later, he phoned me. Video sent through. Engine warning lights back on. I've just booked James another ferry. Luckily, he's going to the Isle of Wight tomorrow. He will then bring the vehicle back. So the third £150. We'll take it back to the garage. We'll fix the problem. We'll wipe out any remaining profit that's in it. And then I genuinely can't go on the ferry again. So I'll end up paying Bob to just deliver it over there when it's fixed, because I don't want to go on White Link car ferries anymore.
This was our morning job.
Oh my God!
But that's the thing with warranties. You just don't know. That's the thing with selling used cars. You just don't know. We did everything in our power to try and get that car prepped and fixed and checked afterwards. We drove it for 150 miles this week to try and nothing happened. But as soon as we drop it off for the customers,
It doesn't like the Isle of Wight.
Maybe. I mean, I sort of get its point.
Yes. And it's stuff like, it's just gutting, because you're on the phone to the customer this morning, and you feel responsible. And, we always joke that they weren't our vehicles. We didn't build them. We didn't make them. We've done everything we possibly can. But they're going to have problems, aren't they?
I mean, is this an argument for moving newer and more, well, not necessarily more upmarket, but into newer cars? Because when James started it, it was up to £6,000 sort of cash money, wasn't it? That was the cash money, that famous amount of money. But £6,000 cars, so you didn't have to pay finance. Whereas now you have got finance, which is a whole other topic of conversation. But you could push yourselves a bit further. You've got more in the bank, according to me, not necessarily a tax return, but you've got more in the bank, and you could afford to go, like 3 to 4 year old cars, which in theory will have less go wrong. Have you thought about that, or have I just suggested it for the first time?
No, I mean we do, and we talk about it, and we have pushed that sort of £6,000 boundary a little bit. We do routinely have stuff now that's sort of 8,000-9,000, and a few that have been more. They sell. They feel like they stick more, and they take a bit longer to sell. I think for us, just our demographic here, that's up to £6,000 drive away ready is what people are looking for. I sold one this morning, absolute textbook, fairly local customer. Car's had some problems, gone in the garage. They've said she's got a Yeti. It's uneconomical to repair. The timing belt's about to break. It needed some other work. She's a courier driver. She needs a vehicle now. She's losing money by not being at work. She turned up this morning, bit my hand off for it, and drove it away. And I don't think we'll whilst there definitely is the other market, that market is particularly strong in this area. So, yeah, for me, it's still where the money is. He says
we sort of found what works, John. If I'm honest, like we find that sort of sub £8,000 stuff where you've got a reasonable margin in it. You can prep it quickly, it sells quickly. We turn it fast. It works better for us, and it's just pushing it up a little bit. You tie a lot more money up in a more expensive car, where we could actually buy, in some cases, 3 cars for that money. The Volvo C30 we bought this morning, which I know you turned your nose up at.
It's literally just turned up. Luke has just walked through the door.
Beautiful car, but it cost us like £4,000 or so on motorway. If you tie up, if we were buying a 3-year-old car, 4-year-old car, we'd be tying up 3-4 Volvo C30s worth. So yeah, it's kind of this. These are the business decisions you have to sort of make as you're running a small used car site like ours.
Standard unit of measure there, 3 or 4 Volvo C30.
It's a good unit of measure.
That's James Maths as well. 3 of those in a car.
Well, it's lovely to have you here, Joe. And I hope to get your opinion. People enjoy this video, I'm sure. But it's lovely to have your opinion throughout our stories. But I suppose we'd better get on and go through them, haven't we, James?
Let's.
Lovely. So James and I are going to run through our favourite stories of the week. And at the end, Joe gets to decide which one of us chose the best ones and who is the winner. Rebecca won last week in your absence, James, because you ran away to save a life or possibly tow a small boat out of a shipping lane, whatever it was. So you get to start.
Thank you, John. And I will start with news from used car supermarket Motorpoint, bouncing back into profit. I think this is the big story of the week for me because we've been covering Motorpoint's fortunes over the last few years, and it hasn't been particularly great. Last year, they clocked up a £10.4 million loss, and you probably remember, John, we spoke about this a lot at the time. This was a time when lots of these large-scale used car supermarkets were cutting back. You had lots of businesses pulling out, and people like Peter Vardy was shutting down his sites. I'm pretty sure the Pendragon car stores all sort of disappeared. Lots of people were having problems, and Motorpoint was one of them. But their latest results, which go up to the end of March 2025, show that revenue soared by 86.5 million. They're up to 1.17 billion pounds in revenue, and their profit bounced back as a result. They're up to 4.1 million pounds for the year, which, in the grand schemes of things, isn't the largest of numbers, but when you look at the swing back from a £10.4 million loss to a £4.1 million profit in a year, that really is something to be applauded. I mean, a fantastic result for them. They sold 87,700 cars, just a few more than we did last year, up 12.4%. Their days in stock shrunk, they say, by 2 days to 43 days on average. I always find that interesting when I see what other businesses are doing. It is quite an interesting statistic. I can't remember what ours average is.
I'm literally needing to find a spreadsheet now just to get an average of what we do.
Yeah, ours is pretty ridiculous. But yeah, Motorpoint's 43 days in stock, but a fantastic result for them, really. They described the 2023 results as their most difficult year ever, were their words. but they're hoping, obviously, these new numbers will draw a line under that brutal period for them. Mark Carpenter, the CEO, said he was extremely pleased with his performance in the financial year 2025. He said Motorpoint has experienced several years of considerable economic headwinds that have hampered our industry. We responded last year with our Brilliant Basics program, something they've called, which they've coined the phrase to right-size their business and improve their margins. And it says they've successfully laid the foundations for further growth in the next financial year. I picked this story, John, because I think it is incredibly impressive what they've managed to do. We follow Motorpoint very closely because they're a listed business, so we obviously get lots of updates from them, which is nice. And it was sad to see their losses that they clocked up last year, and nice to see that actually a well-run business can bounce back. I think it's probably a lot to do with the fact that the market has changed. The new car market has moved a little bit more into a push market, and Motorpoint has traditionally snapped up those pre-registration vehicles. That some manufacturers are punting out into the marketplace, and they sell them at a massive discount. I'm pretty sure, John, you've probably looked at some of them, they make decent profits off them as a result. So yeah, it's probably a lot to do with market shifts as well, but also they've clearly made some big changes to their business and been successful as a result. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, basically what you just said. I don't want to be too reductive and say it's all to do with push market and pre-reg coming back, but you don't have to look very far on their website to see that there's a lot of nearly new stock on there that was not there, let's say 12 months ago. Flick through, there's a lot of Stellantis products actually they seem to have at the moment for
What a surprise.
near enough half price, I would say, for 6 months old, 2,000 miles sort of stuff. And that is where Motorpoint thrives, really. It's stuff coming off pre-reg and stuff coming off leases and et cetera, isn't it? And all the time that the market was good for lots of used car dealers in that prices were high. We had that kind of mad period post-COVID, didn't we? It wasn't good for Motorpoint's business model, whereas it's built around this more normal one that we're in now, I think. So yeah, that's my opinion. But yes, nice to see them back in profit. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, definitely. What was our days in stock then, Joe?
The numbers, I mean, when you look at someone like Motorpoint with those numbers, it's crazy, isn't it? You think, how would you scale to that level? But ours, I mean, I love looking at ours. So the average days to sell of what we purchase is 32, but our average days to actually sell that stock is 18.
Yikes.
Yeah,
it's nearly 50% quicker. It's pretty impressive, isn't it? Especially when you hear of someone that big that's doing averagely 42.
Yeah, no, it's we met a couple of their buyers, didn't we? Actually, when we were at the motorway conference a couple of weeks back, and it was the scale of the buying that they were telling us. The guy you were sat next to, didn't he say he was buying 300 cars a week from motorway? He was
just motorway, carway. They still, which is nice to hear in a way. It's nice to back to what you asked me earlier, John, that scaling it doesn't. Yeah, absolutely, they get them from other sources and auctions and such like, but they still haven't lost that. They haven't moved away from the going to the car. And okay, they're not collecting them. Obviously they use the moves and the Carwell collects. But it's nice to see that even at that scale, they're still buying completely different purchases to us, what they look for and so on. But yeah, it's good to see that they're still using those systems.
We were saying to them, weren't we? What do you do? Because we obviously, when we go and pick up these cars, or Luke goes and picks up these cars, we really carefully check everything, make sure there's no extra dents, check the service history. We said to them, what do you do? How do you deal with that on such scale? They just went, we just pay the customer. They just pay the customer, whatever turns up. They was just, we haven't got the time to check them.
I think actually you used one of your favourite phrases. It is what it is.
Right, Joe, that's the second time you've used that phrase this week.
I try and get that phrase in at least once a day, Joe.
If you do it again, there is
going to be rile him up, ready. I think those are his words. They just pay the customer, turn up, take the car away. They win some, they lose some.
Joe, you and I are going to fall out if you use that one more time. We'll be right back. Now, John, I'm really enjoying how easy it is to pay sellers on Carwow.
I mean, presume you'd rather not pay them at all.
No, that is true. But now I can do it with CarWow Wallet. You can pay sellers, finance houses, and more instantly, literally in one click. It's secure, easy to use, and gets rid of all the pesky finance back and forth. It's a total game changer, John.
That does sound pretty good.
If you want to find out more, dealers can log on to carwow.co.uk/partners/carwow-wallet. Now, back to the podcast. Right, John, move us on quickly from that terrible phrase.
Okay, right. I'm going to move us on to Chinese cars. I've said that out, Alan Partridge. A study has found that 3/4 of UK motorists would now consider a Chinese car, says Startline Motor Finance. So according to this, 72% of people that they spoke to would now consider buying a car made by Chinese entrants. I'd also say that assumes that people have bothered to actually check the origin of the cars that they're buying, which I would say 85% of people do not do. But interestingly, some buyers are retaining concerns over quality, security, and dealer support. So the reason I brought this one up, of course, James, is we've been driving a Chinese car. I say this as though like we're really ahead of the game. We've been driving a Chinese car. Has anyone heard of those? Wow. We've finally got behind the wheel of one of those newfangled Chinese vehicles. But we've been in an Omoda 5, haven't we? And I bring this up because you have been very rude about me and Batch in your Substack, and said
I wondered whether you'd read that.
we were typical motoring journalists. I mean, James forgets what he actually does for his income. Also a motoring journalist, but apparently we've been too harsh on the Omoda for being a little bit plasticky, and having a slightly subpar gearbox and interior.
I didn't disagree with you, did I? I didn't disagree that had some of those things. What my point was, which I've made in my Substack, and those subscribers can who subscribe to it will be able to find out, was that, John, most buyers don't care. Like, this is the thing. Most buyers will just look at it and go, that's a really nice, affordable SUV that's going to cost me less than the other one, that generic SUV in the dealership down the road. It comes with a long warranty, and most buyers simply don't care about the fact that it's got a little bit of a scratchy plastic and the leather squeaks a little bit. It's a motoring journalist thing, I'm afraid.
Well, unfortunately, you pay motoring journalists, or the world pays motoring journalists to find out these things. That's the thing. It's so that your average car buyer doesn't have to go around all 17 dealerships to find what a Nissan and a Honda and a Toyota and a BMW and an Audi, and I could go on, are like in comparison to an Omoda or whatever. So you see, that's the thing. But you're not wrong. I mean, what I would send it back to is the 90s. Best-selling car, Ford Escort. Absolutely terrible car.
Well, that's
But
my case in point, isn't it?
everyone bought one, so I sort of get it. But going back to the crux of this story, though, it's about people not being scared of Chinese cars, and I think probably what I find interesting is that it seems to be the winds of change have blown in terms of, I don't know if it's to do with brand or what, but I don't think this would have been the case 20 years ago. I don't think people would have been quite so open to random brands from other countries. And I think back to like driving that Omoda yesterday, whatever it was. I sort of I compare. It's been a long
So
week.
dismissive. Whatever it was, whatever that car.
No, so whenever it was, it's been a very
sorry.
long week.
I thought you said whatever it was.
No, it was definitely an Omoda. It said Omoda on the back of it. But going back to that, I don't think that car is any better or worse than Kias were when they first came to the UK compared to your Fords and your Vauxhalls and so on. I don't think that, there's a slight jump down in perceived quality, as motoring journalists would put it. Things are a little bit more plasticky. They're not quite as attuned to European tastes. But nobody went out and bought, not that many people went out and bought a Kia Mentor, did they, in the 90s, that car I love to bring up. And not many people went out and bought a Hyundai Sonata instead of a Mondeo. It just didn't happen. So what's happening now? Why is everyone going? And those cars were significantly cheaper than European rivals. So why is it all happening now? Why is suddenly everyone open to all these brands that they've never heard of before?
Well, I mean, I think it comes down to I get it, I think it comes down to price, really. I
But
sort of get.
they were cheaper. I wonder if it's just the economic situation. Are people more, and the price of cars in general? Maybe back then nobody wanted to pay Ford Escort money for a Hyundai Sonata. They just go and buy a Ford Escort instead. Whereas now, perhaps they're trading in their, I don't know, Honda CRV and going, how much is the new one? And they're suddenly looking for a car the same price that they paid 5 years ago. Maybe that's the situation.
Yeah, I think they probably are, and I think that although these cars are not as good as some of the rivals from for example Volkswagen. If you put it up against that Motor 5 up against like a Tiguan, but from today they're going to, if you actually sat in both of them, you would tell the difference. But I don't think most buyers do. I mean, I think recent stats show that most customers just go to one dealership when they're looking to buy a new car. So the only car they sit in is probably the car they're going to buy anyway. And when you compare it to a Tiguan, the price difference, John, is huge. A Tiguan on a monthly payment is going to be 500 quid. That a Motor 5 is 250 quid. Big difference.
He's just bought a Tiguan, John, and he really is excited about it.
He's very much a say what you see kind of person.
Yeah, absolutely. That sort of brain power.
Yeah. Joe, James has been harping on for about 6 weeks about how he'd quite like an Emoda franchise. I'm not saying that has had any bearing on what he's written on the
how dare you!
I was just going to ask Joe, how would you feel about having a new car franchise as I go and answer the door to a man delivering a VW to me?
You do that and I'll listen, John, and then I'll tell you what he said.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have the discussion a few times, don't we? If we were to go down that level or that route, which one would we pick? I think it's got to be one of those Chinese brands. Looking at what has happened, in the industry in the last few years and how they're coming good, I think absolutely. If you're going to get a certain demographic into new cars and you're going to try and make a success of a new car dealership, you'd be foolish not to consider one of these newer brands that people are going to go for. Because for me, my car's up for a new lease soon. I'll consider them from a price point of view. Absolutely, because you'd be foolish not to.
One of the things, the point I made to Batch and John is that the things I think customers care about when it comes to like us selling the used cars that we do, they don't even notice. Sometimes I think, they're going to be really concerned about that scratch or really concerned about that wheel. They don't even mention it. And I just think when it comes to these Chinese cars choices, I just think people are not even going to, most people won't even know it's a Chinese manufacturer.
They're buying it to be fun. Cars for us become a joy and a love and something that is a big part of your life more than mine, but still we look at every millimeter and look at every scratch from the point we go and first see it to purchase it to what we think the customer's going to see to what we need repaired. Your average person is getting in their car in their driveway on a cold wet winter's day, driving it to work, parking it up and abandoning it, and that's it. That's what they care about.
Have you seen the BYDs and the Modas on the road? I mean, do they? What do you think of them?
They don't stand out in a bad way. You don't drive along and think, oh, there's one of those Chinese cars. They work, they fit in. People are using them. They're becoming more. I mean, BYD seem to be cropping up everywhere. I've seen more and more just around where we are recently. So yeah, they're definitely working. They don't stand out. You don't see one and go, oh, that's a cheap car or not a quality vehicle or anything when you see them in car parks or whatever. So yeah, they're in amongst it now, aren't they? And ever growing.
Well, John's still taking delivery of some van or something, so I'll just move us on to the next story. And if he's not back at the end of it, then I'll just do another one. Yeah. So my next story, I'm going to pick the fact that Wessex Garage's boss, Chris Wiseman, has stepped down from his role after 25 years. I picked this story because Chris has been very generous with his time with us at Car Dealer Magazine. He's been to Car Dealer Live and talked about the motor trade. I think it was at last year's event. But in a post on LinkedIn last Friday, he announced the news that he's going to be stepping back from his role. He said, "Today is my last day at Wessex Garages after 25 years, including nearly 6 as MD. I can look back proudly on how far we've come and what we've achieved, but the time has come to say goodbye." He was removed as a director at Wessex Garages businesses on Companies House pretty much immediately. Mark Pardo was named as a director on the same day alongside Mr. Ito and Yamazaki. I'm pretty sure they come from the investors, the investors behind Wessex Garages. Last year, Wessex Garages, its accounts for the end of 31st of March 2024 showed a loss of 1.47 million on turnover of 259 million. And Chris Wiseman has basically hinted that he may be back in the future, back in the industry, not back at Wessex Garages. He said, for me, it's a new chapter, one where I'll find a way to make a difference, improve and give a little bit back to the industry I've been privileged to work in and that's afforded me so much. In the meantime, it's lots of golf, he said. His post had loads of interactions, more than 100 comments at the time that I wrote this story, including from Catherine Fairs, COO of Auto Trader, said, what an amazing journey. And Nathan Tomlinson from Devonshire Motors said, amazing words from one of the greatest. Thanks for being an inspiration, Chris. So we wish Chris Wiseman all the best for the future. It'd be interesting to see where he pops up. But we just wanted to mention his departure on the podcast, that he will certainly be missed. Just like you were, John, while you were accepting the van from the delivery man.
Yes, had to be done. Unfortunately, he parked it on a verge outside somebody else's house, and it's a very contentious suburban issue.
Is it?
To park at. Yeah, I mean,
like the bins.
Don't get me started. But yes, yeah, I'm looking forward to see where Chris Wiseman pops up again soon. Hopefully, again in the motor trade.
Indeed. But it's over to you, John. We've discussed stuff in your absence, which you'll be able to listen back to in the podcast.
Yeah, I won't be doing that. So I'm going to move us on to another survey. Love a good survey this week. More than half of car buyers will go electric and hybrid with their next car purchase, says a survey from Motors. So Motors have quizzed over 2,000 people in their latest survey. And as I say, they reckon nearly a quarter are expecting to buy an EV. The highest rate recorded by the research so far, which they've been doing since 2018. And that's 22% expecting to buy an EV compared to just 6% who currently own one. So that's quite a jump if people are to be believed. But I mean, the bigger thing is 30% expect to choose a full hybrid or plug-in hybrid vehicle, up from 11% that currently own one. And I just wanted to touch on the hybrid that I've been driving this week. I've been driving two hybrids. One of which I can't talk about, which is a Bentley, because there's an embargo for the next 2 weeks. But far more importantly, far more interestingly, I feel, I've been driving around the Jeep Wrangler 4xe, James.
Wow. Have you?
I have. And you know, it's perhaps one of the strangest hybrids you could possibly imagine. It is a plug-in hybrid. I will say it's the only thing that the Alamo rent-a-car desk had in Seattle when I went there. But it was like a really peculiar car. But driving it around for a couple of days, what I came away thinking is that actually so many cars work well as a hybrid and are so like unpowertrain specific that actually I just think probably the more we move to electrification, the more I'm losing train of what my thoughts here. But the lots of cars, James. You just think of when you think of going to fully electric and plug-in hybrid, you go, oh, but my Ferrari, I don't want it to have a plug-in hybrid powertrain. There are a lot of cars that are more interesting by virtue of all the other bits of the car than just the drivetrain, is what I would say. So I don't think we've got a terrible future ahead of us if everything has a plug.
Dangerous Ferrari's got a plug because he never uses it. So it is hybrid because it needs plugging in. So
that is true, actually.
It still comes with a plug.
This is outrage. I'm afraid I don't agree with you, John. I just don't find them as interesting. But I don't. But what I did find interesting is you came back from driving that Jeep Wrangler with trucker's arm, didn't you?
I did. It's trucker's arm on the wrong side.
Oh, there you go.
Because this arm, actually out the window, fine. The other one, where the sunroof was open, got very burnt.
And I knew you were driving a Jeep Wrangler because of your new social media binge on Instagram. It was all over it, wasn't it? And all the many followers from this podcast will now know that because there's many posts.
Honestly, I'm just trying to keep up with you, James. That's all.
I can't remember what that story was.
Anyway, it was about more people choosing hybrids was the crux of that story, James. I think I actually think that 30%. I think you're going to end up with more people choosing a hybrid for their next car than 30% personally, because plug-in hybrids are saturating the market a little bit now. And I think it doesn't take much to get someone in a hybrid compared to an EV. So
Yeah.
perhaps if I were to analyse these figures, I would say the 22% for buying an EV, perhaps a little bit over-egged. I think people are a little bit overexcited about the concept of an EV until they actually look into it. I reckon you're going to get more PHEV stuff. That's my insight. Over
Thank
to you,
you.
James.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Joe's a real life car buyer. Is he going to consider a PHEV when you change your Volvo?
I did last time, and the salesman in the Volvo garage said, "Don't be ridiculous. Don't buy one of our plug-in hybrids. Buy an ICE one." So I bought one of those. So I'll do what he says next time. But no, I mean, I would. For me, again, it's like you were saying, John, about the Chinese thing. Sometimes it's the cost as well. You know, they could have offered me. We bought the petrol XC40. We could have had the plug-in hybrid or the fully electric one. A third again on the price. We wouldn't have worked. You know, you work the maths out on that. We wouldn't have seen the benefits in that. So, you know, again, the costings and the incentives. I am a little bit the same as well. That I'm not. Occasionally, some of the stuff that James tests and brings up here, I sort of like that Renault that you're buzzing around in at the moment. I can kind of understand, but I can understand it from a that looks fun for a week. Actually living with it and living and breathing with it every day, I'm still not convinced.
Yeah, we're running around in a Renault 5 this week, and I'm really impressed with it, actually. You know, so it's quite a fun little electric car.
This is what I've been telling you for 6 months, James.
I wouldn't buy one.
That road test is between his house and the dealership with no one else in it, and based on the fact he can put 2 Starbucks in it, which he can't do in some of the other cars. So
it's true. it's proper consumer testing here. Oh,
Jesus, move us on, please.
have I got time for one more?
Yeah, go on.
I am going to go with news from another car supermarket. This time, Trade Centre Group. Now, did you bring this up on the podcast last week, John?
Yes, so you can't talk about it now.
Well, no, I can, because following that story last week where we reported on their heavy losses for 2024, Trade Centre Group issued us a press release. And that press release was an update on how they're doing this year. And they say they're enjoying the fruits of its team's hard work in 2024 after notching up a chunky, according to James Batchelor, pre-tax profit for the first half of this year. So it's very unusual for a business which isn't listed to issue a sort of mid-year trading update to the press. But I think following their losses of last year, Trade Centre Group have decided to do exactly that. So we had a press release this week that said they're really enjoying the fruits of their hard work in 24. This is CEO Andy Coulthurst. He said, we made wholesale changes to the business, including improved technology and introducing a more dynamic senior leadership team across the sales function. He said, you could see across the market in 2024 how challenging the car supermarket model was proven to be, with key players closing or repurposing their stores and profits tightening. Whilst we also faced difficult headwinds, we knew that our transformation plan would set us on a course to strong profitability in 2025. It says our focus is firmly on a £10 million plus profit before tax for the full year. So interesting, I think, that on this story, the fact that they issued this update to us. I'm not sure whether it went to anybody else. Not that I'd read anybody else anyway, but they certainly sent it to us, and it comes off the back of that £5.4 million loss in 2024, where they blamed a very challenging used car market in their annual accounts. So clearly they're seeing the turnaround too, just like Motorpoint has. So I picked it, John, because it's a nice positive story from the used car supermarket world. 2, actually.
Well done, James. Can I squeeze another in?
I don't know. Have we got time? I'm sort of lost track of time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a clock at the top of this recording. You can see how much time we've got. But yes, we absolutely can fit another one in, James. And I'm just going to briefly touch on news of the Trump tariffs, which we've been talking about for a little while, because Mr. Trump has graciously, thanks to some negotiation, if you want to call it that, by Keir Starmer over there, he's graciously given us 100,000 car exports at the lower 10% tariff. But of course, what happens if we export more than 100,000 cars? We will, of the cars that go over that, hit a 25% tariff. So there's been some discussion as to how does that actually work in reality. Is it the first 100,000 people to get their wins? Or do we somehow carve out how this 100,000 is allocated? Do we split it in such a way that JLR gets a certain amount and Mini gets a certain amount, and so on and so forth? It's all very complicated. But what seems to have come out this week, according to this story, is that ministers are to choose which exports are taxed at the lower 10% rate and which are charged at the 25%, which, I mean, somebody's got to choose, presumably, but I wouldn't want to be in this situation at the minute, either a minister trying to work out how this is going to work, or a car maker who has to try and deal with plotting how many cars they're going to export to the US at the minute. Because, as I say, you're JLR, how do you determine what your forecast for US exports is going to be? How do you price those cars when they actually get to the US? Do you on your US website, do you assume that everything is going to have the 25% and then give everyone a discount when it's within that region? Do you reduce your forecast and send the cars elsewhere? It's really complicated. And I, as I may have mentioned last week, I was on a Bentley launch.
And you didn't mention it at all, John.
It may have come up, but I asked, since it was a Bentley launch in America, it was slightly fair of me to ask, well, what? How are you feeling about these Trump tariffs at the minute? They called them the T word. I don't know if T stood for Trump or tariffs. But I said, well, how do you feel about this 100,000 situation? How do you think it's going to be worked out? How are you going to know when you're going over the threshold? And their response was kind of, we don't know. We've literally got no idea at the moment. And this is just the situation that we find ourselves in at the minute. Car makers just have no idea about lots of things, not just this. But there's so little clarity for car makers at the minute about so much stuff that's going on. I would not want to be one.
Surely the fairest way to do this is just simply say the first 100,000 vehicles that enter the US get the 10% rate, and after that it's 25%. And it's a race to get your cars over there, isn't it?
Well, sort of. I suppose that would you would argue if you were, say, Bentley. I'm not saying this is their words because it's not what they said to me. But if you were Bentley or Caterham or Morgan, a car company that makes cars relatively slowly, you would be at an unfair disadvantage compared to, say, Mini or JLR, who could suddenly decide tomorrow, right, let's try and get through our 100,000. Let's try and push as many as we can in the next 3 months. Because lots of cars in America are sold predominantly on what's on the lot, aren't they? They are not personalised in quite the same way that we do here. Like, funnily enough, on this Bentley launch, there was one of the caterers who used to sell Toyotas, and I was chatting to him about this. And I said, like, how does it work for you guys? Like, how did you sell cars? Do people come into your showroom and say, right, I want a Tacoma or whatever, and I want it to have this option package, and I want it to be this color or whatever? And it was, no, it's, there's your choice of colors, there's your choice of option packs, it's out there, which one do you want? That's it. Whereas for us, completely different. So if you're a volume car maker, I'm not sure JLR is a volume car maker, but it's more volume than Bentley, you could afford to send out loads of white, black, red Range Rovers, and people could take their pick, couldn't you, to an extent? Certainly, definitely with Mini, I think you could say that. Whereas Rolls-Royce, everything, and Bentley, everything's bespoke and everything's has an 8-month lead time. So I don't think that's necessarily the fairest way to do it, personally. That's just my opinion, but I don't know. It's I think when Bentley spoke to me, it was almost like, well, perhaps the US government has to decide who's getting these reduced tariffs. But even then, that's not foolproof, is it? Because if I was in US State Department, would I say, yeah, let's give Bentley, whose cars cost £245,000, let's give them all the discounts? You wouldn't, would you? You'd go, oh, well, there's more tax on those, so I'll be taxing those at the full rate. Thank you very much.
I've got nothing to add to this whatsoever. So,
well, I will summarize by saying, oh God, it's a nightmare. and I wouldn't want to be a car maker trying to sell things in America at the minute.
And also, I've just realised, Joe, that we've completely forgotten that there's someone picking up a Toyota Aygo on behalf of CarWow for us, and they've just sent through the checks, and we haven't probably got enough money to pay for the car. So one of us needs to do that.
It won't be me. I've already done my bit this morning.
Sounds like a me job.
So very, very similar kind of problems you're having to car makers.
Exactly. Exactly.
Very high value transactions happening. So you haven't got any more stories, James. So Joe, are there any stories you think we should have talked about this week but we haven't?
Well, I think that is a good selection, John. I think you've covered. Well, one of you has covered the key bits there, definitely.
You're not going to tell us who. Okay,
Well,
so what were your favourite stories? Who's your winner?
I mean, it's slightly different. I've obviously listened to this podcast. I could ask you the same question, what it's like working with James, but I won't because I assume that you still want to work with James.
It's fantastic. It's great.
What I like here, John, it's the Car Dealer podcast. It's fantastic. I listen to it every week. Many car dealers do. And what you have managed to do there is find 3 stories that really are about the industry. You know, the Chinese stuff, up and coming, some research, some really good tips and bits there. The same with the hybrid side, and obviously the tariffs on everyone's mind. James, on the other hand, he's basically said a company's making some money. A man left his job, and there's another company that's hoping to make some money. All stories which I think he actually drafted. So purely from a effort and a preparation side, John, it's got to go to you for those hints and tips, for those real kind of bits that I'm sure car dealers are interested in, as lovely as James's stories were.
Oh, thank you, Joe. Well, if you need help looking for a new job, give me a call. I can flick through Indeed for you. But that's lovely. I will absolutely take the win there. Thank you very much, James.
I'd say well done, but I don't mean it. So
It would be a lie.
Gracious in defeat as ever. Well, that's all that's left for me to say is thank you to Joe for coming on and taking some time out of your busy schedule of fixing James's mess to talk to us. It's been lovely to have you on.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you as well to James for something about an iGo. I wasn't really listening. And thank you all for listening. We will be back next week with another episode. So don't forget to subscribe so you can be notified when that goes live. Don't forget as well, we have Car Dealer Podcast Live, which will be slightly better organised than this particular podcast because I won't go outside to accept a VW van halfway through unless I've arranged it for that week. So tickets are available. Sorry, Joe.
We will need a van for that event, though. So
we will need a van for that event. That's very true. And Joe will be there in the background making that work as well. But don't forget, you can buy tickets to that in one of the links below. If you want to read the stories we talked about today, head to cardealermagazine.co.uk or look at the notes below as well. Thanks for listening and goodbye.